Good evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Upani. Tonight, Acting President Professor Yemi Osinbajo travels to London to visit President Muhammadu Buhari, who is receiving medical treatment. Acting President Professor Yemi Osinbajo assures of a turnaround in the nation's economy, but insists the private sector has a vital role to play. The National Assembly holds emergency sessions on the recurring flood incidents across the country with a mandate of finding lasting solutions to the crisis. And son of U.S. President Donald Trump Jr. releases a chain of emails showing that he was keen to receive information on Hillary Clinton from a Russian national.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's Debt Management Office plans $483.4 million debt service on foreign loans over the next 10 years.
While on sports news, Venus Williams becomes the oldest Wimbledon semi-finalist after the five-time champion brushes aside French Open winner Jelena Ostapenko to reach the last four for a 10th time.
From Abuja, federal government approves appointment of 19 judges to serve in the industrial courts, increasing the flexibility of the judicial system.
We begin tonight with the Acting President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, right now in London, meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari, who's been in the United Kingdom for over 60 days on medical vacation. Professor Osinbajo was set to have left late this afternoon and is expected to return to Nigeria immediately after the meeting with the President. The Acting President's media aide, Mr. Olaolu Akonde, took to Twitter this evening to say, Acting President meeting with President Buhari in London today and returning to Abuja immediately afterwards. It is the second time the President has travelled for medical attention this year. He returned to the country on March 10th, having spent 49 days. It's not clear the premise for the Acting President's visit to the President in London, but since his second visit about 60 days ago, there have been no pictures of him meeting with anyone, just like he did the first time, except for an audio recording in Hausa language where he sent a silent message to Nigerian Muslims. Well, earlier today, the Acting President assured Nigerians that the country will be out of recession within the next 12 to 18 months. But for this to happen, he says the private sector must partner with the government to upscale the nation's economy. Speaking at a fourth quarterly business forum at the State House, Professor Osinbajo said the budget size should not deter the determination for achieving economic growth. Our correspondent, Gloria Umezuke, reports.
For the fourth time, the Acting President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, hosted the Presidential Quarterly Business Forum, attended by members of the Executive Council and the leadership of the private sector. The nation's tax regime, voluntary assets and income declaration, as well as power, formed the basis for discussion. The Minister of Finance began by hinting that the nation can no longer borrow and so must increase its domestic revenue through tax.
We don't have money to actually deliver essential services. There simply isn't enough money in government to do what government should do. And I'm sure you will all say that's because people are stealing or because you're wasting money. And I'm saying even if you plug all the stealing and all the waste, the budget size is not big enough. And that's because we're not paying enough in terms of tax. We can't borrow anymore. We simply have to generate more revenue. We have to plug the leakages. We have to improve tax collection. This administration has shown that it has the capacity and the will to deliver those services.
The Acting President's urge to the private sector to augment the government's efforts is not entirely new, but if taken seriously, he says, the narrative will change.
Despite these problems, progress is still possible, despite the problems. But as we tackle the problems, I mean, it's really like repairing a car while the engine is running. That's really what we need to do. Now, while this vehicle of ours, this car of ours is moving forward, we must be doing the repairs at the same time. We cannot fold our arms and say, there's a problem with power. And look at India, 40% of the firms generate their own power. Yet they have the difficulties that we have, but they are making the progress despite those constraints. The way to do it is simply what India and any other country would do, is a commitment to ensuring that we incrementally make this progress. And that commitment must come from government and must also, of course, come from the private sector.
During an interactive session, the Minister of Power, Works and Housing enumerates the kind of changes the power sector recovery plan seeks to achieve, including reinventing the tariff plan.
We have set a minimum generation of 4,000 megawatt. I want to stress the operative word there is a minimum. And then we want to also reduce the losses. And the losses come from so many sides. Lack of proper metering, poor equipment, electricity theft, violation and destruction of electricity assets that generally just characterize inefficiencies and lead to inefficiencies in the system. Those are issues that this program seeks to address.
The quarterly forum is part of multiple approaches by the federal government to encourage a stable and diversified economy. Gloria Umezuke, Channel Television News.
The National Assembly is commiserating with the governments and people of states ravaged by floods in different parts of the country at the weekend. Federal lawmakers want urgent steps to be taken by governments at all levels to prevent avoidable flooding in the country. Our correspondent Lina Kibe has more.
Lawmakers observe a minute's silence to mourn victims of flooding in different parts of the country at the weekend. Reports say more than 15 people lost their lives in Tafa and Suleja local government areas of Niger State as fierce floods ravaged homes and farmlands after heavy rainfall on Sunday, July 9th. At the weekend in Victoria Island, Lekki and its environs in Lagos, flood water entered homes and shops, in some cases destroying properties. The Lagos state government has explained that the floods are caused by the high tide of a lagoon, slowing down the flow of rainfall from drainage channels. But residents and environmentalists have blamed government for failing to take proactive steps to prevent what has become a yearly predictable problem.
It is a clear confirmation of the fact that
federal lawmakers expressed their concern over the magnitude of destruction from the floods.
Worried that the recent flood disasters in the country appear to have consistently caught victims off guard in spite of early weather forecasts, including prediction of flood, thunderstorm, and other extreme weather conditions by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET. What has happened in Suleja is a clear confirmation of the fact that this is something that will require a much more robust, action from the part of government so that we can prevent the very unfortunate loss of lives and livelihood of our citizens.
The Senate is asking the federal government to release funds from the ecological funds to the Niger State government for the immediate construction of drainage systems in Suleja, Tafa and other flood-prone areas in Niger State. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is to set up an ad hoc committee to liaise with relevant government agencies to find a lasting solution to the problem of floods in the country. Both chambers of the National Assembly have directed the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to provide relief materials for the flood victims. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
Total Nigeria is planning to build 4 fully equipped hospitals in the northeast at the cost of 150 million naira. The managing director of Total Nigeria, Mr. Nicholas Terras, told the Borno State governor that 2 of the facilities will be sited in Borno State. Mr. Terras explained that the facility is designed to cater for the health of children and women in the northeast.
The peace-building assessment conducted by the World Bank and the European Union says over 200 health facilities were destroyed by Boko Haram sect. One of the interventions to revive the health facilities is coming from Total Nigeria Limited.
It's important to know what we are doing and where we are doing.
The managing director says the company is aware of the humanitarian situation in the northeast and is making efforts to contribute to the rehabilitation of the area.
We've decided this time to support not only Borno State but the northeast with maternal referral centers, so maternal health centers. And we've decided to support the construction of 4 maternal health centers in the northeast. On 2 of these maternal health centers to be located in Borno State, Your Excellency. We are going to support the construction on startup of these centers. I think the cost of each center is about 150 million naira for each. So we want them to be quality centers with a certain size and capable of providing good services to health services for women and for children in the region.
Governor Ibrahim Shatima laments the devastation caused by the sect in the region and pays special tribute to the company for coming to the aid of the region.
Total is the first major player in the oil industry among the multinationals in this country to show empathy and support to the challenges in the Northeast.
The company is also extending its corporate social responsibility to the internally displaced persons in the Northeast.
Maritime workers in Nigeria appeared not to be pleased with the nation's federal lawmakers. They've taken to the streets in Lagos to protest the move by the National Assembly to repeal the Nigerian Ports Authority Act. In a bill which originates from the Assembly, the lawmakers are seeking to repeal the NPA Act 2004 and establish the Nigerian Ports and Harbours Authority. The bill is aimed at providing for the ownership, management and development of ports and harbours and for related matters. However, the workers say the bill, if passed, will lead to loss of jobs in the sector, as the reform targets concessioning of the operations of ports and harbours in Nigeria. And in a bid to curb the menace of truck congestion at the nation's seaports in Apapa and Port Harcourt, the federal government has announced plans to develop truck transit parks in Lokoja, Kogi State, and Obolafo in Enugu State. Speaking at a national summit on the establishment, management and operation of truck transit parks in Nigeria, the Minister of Transportation, Mr. Rotimi Amechi, says similar parks will also be established at Ogere in Ogun State, Jeba in Kwara, and Porto Novo Creek here in Lagos.
The neglect of the rail lines for about 3 decades is said to be responsible for the increasing use of road haulage as a major means of long-distance transportation of goods. It is for this reason that the Minister of Transport announces plans by the federal government to establish truck transit parks.
The high statistics of road accidents and loss of cargo occasioned by bad road is of concern to government. Environmental degradation is another negative impact of excessive usage of roads by heavy-duty vehicles. It is to this end that the imperative of providing truck transit parks, also known as truck terminals, rest stops, comes to the fore, necessitating the Federal Ministry of Transportation and Nigerian Shippers Council to convene this national summit on the theme Truck Transit Parks, providing critical infrastructure for trade and transit in Nigeria.
A representative of the Minister of Power, Works and Housing and the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Shippers Council explained the reason behind the establishment of the truck transit parks.
If the activities of these big vehicles are not well managed, they become a big menace to the society. Such situations are being experienced along federal roads, whereby heavy goods vehicles cause traffic gridlocks and destruction of the road pavement.
If you move by road, even from Abuja to Kaduna, you will have seen certain villages or towns where these trailers or articulated vehicles are parked indiscriminately. Now, they cause a lot of havoc, environmental degradation, and that's not the way to carry on business. We need to have modern transport infrastructure, and the truck transit park is an off-the-highway structure where we'll provide hotels, hostels, gas stations, and a vast expanse of land, about 50 to 60 hectares.
The truck transit parks, which will be replicated on major routes and roads leading to neighboring countries of Benin, Cameroon and Niger is expected to be completed within the 2017 fiscal year.